Before you go, I have a little favor to ask. If this story touched your heart in any way, let me know where you're watching from. I love hearing from people all over the world. Are you curled up in bed, riding the train, or sitting in your favorite coffee shop? Share it in the comments below. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on the bell, because tomorrow's episode will uncover a twist you won't want to miss. Trust me, it's one of the most emotional ones yet. See you in the next story. Kaylee Rivera had never lifted a finger in her life. The only daughter of two powerful entrepreneurs in Southern California, she was used to luxury. The kind of luxury that meant waking up to freshly squeezed orange juice on Egyptian cotton sheets, chauffeurs waiting outside marble gates, and weekends spent shopping along Rodeo Drive. Her biggest worry used to be choosing between Paris and Milan for winter break. But everything changed one rainy evening. It was her 20th birthday. She had gone out with friends, dressed to the nines, laughing without a care, and driving her brand new convertible a little too fast. One moment, music filled the car. The next, tires screeched and a scream echoed through the street. When the dust settled, a woman lay unconscious on the pavement. Kaylee froze. Instead of calling for help, her friends urged her to flee. Panicked, drunk, and overwhelmed, she listened. That night became the turning point of her life. The woman, Mrs. Leona Wells, a longtime maid of a high-profile billionaire, fell into a coma. The security footage was undeniable. The media caught wind, and in the blink of an eye, Kaylee's privileged world crumbled. Facing jail time, lawsuits, and the collapse of her family's business empire, Kaylee's father made a desperate deal with the only man powerful enough to make the charges disappear, Jace Anderson. Cold, commanding, and heartless, Jace was not the kind of man who gave second chances. But Mrs. Wells wasn't just an employee to him. She had raised him when no one else had. His condition was clear. Kaylee would work in his mansion, take over Mrs. Wells's duties, and live like the help, or he would press charges. The offer stunned her. A Rivera, wearing a maid's uniform? Cleaning toilets, folding sheets, cooking and scrubbing floors? It was humiliating, but the alternative, prison, was far worse. So the following week, Kaylee packed her designer suitcase, traded in her heels for flats, and stepped into the Grand. Estate not as a guest, but as a housekeeper. Gone were the days of late-night parties and diamond-studded dresses. Now, her mornings began at 6 a.m., mopping hardwood floors that stretched longer than her old bedroom. Everyone in the mansion had heard the story. Whispers followed her through the hallways. Yet she bit her lip, tied her hair back, and did the work. Her hands blistered from scrubbing. Her pride bled a little every day. And the man who once only existed in magazine covers? He watched her, silently, from the shadows. Not a word of comfort, not a shred of sympathy. But still, she stayed. Because this was her punishment. Because deep down she knew she deserved it. And because part of her wondered, would living in Jace Anderson's world break her, or somehow remake her? At first, Kaylee thought she could just keep her head down and survive. She scrubbed the kitchen floor until her knees ached, polished chandeliers taller than she was, and folded Jace Anderson's perfectly pressed shirts with shaking hands. No one treated her kindly. Not the other staff, not the guests, and definitely not Jace. He passed her in the halls like she didn't exist, except for those rare moments when his eyes lingered a second too long. Cold, calculating eyes, but filled with something else, something she couldn't name. Then one night, it all changed. She was cleaning his study, carefully wiping down the dark oak desk, when the door slammed shut behind her. She froze. Slowly, she turned around, and there he was, Jace Anderson, in a suit, his tie loosened, his expression unreadable. "You shouldn't be in here alone," he said, voice low and steady. I was just finishing up, she replied, heart thumping in her chest. He stepped closer. So, this is what the Rivera princess looks like in rags, he smirked, eyes scanning her maid uniform like it was some kind of twisted joke. Kaylee straightened her back. I'm doing my job. Are you? He said, tilting his head. Or are you just waiting for me to snap and throw you out? She clenched her fists. I'm not going anywhere. Something shifted in his gaze. We'll see. The tension was suffocating. Every time their paths crossed, it was like fire and gasoline. He'd insult her, she'd snap back, and somehow, it became a rhythm. Their arguments were sharp, but behind them lurked something far more dangerous: attraction. One morning, Kaylee was folding linens in the hallway when she heard shouting downstairs. Without thinking, she ran toward the sound. Jace was arguing with a business associate, fierce, unrelenting, powerful. But when he saw her standing there, something cracked in his armor. His tone softened. His voice lowered. He dismissed the man and stormed past her, but not before whispering, "Don't look at me like that." "Like what?" she asked. "Like you see something worth saving." Kaylee didn't know how to respond. But the truth was, she did see something. Beneath the tailored suits and arrogance, there was pain in Jace's silence, loss in his eyes. She saw him stay up late by Mrs. Wells's bedside, holding her hand like a scared little boy. That night, she found herself standing outside his door, holding a tray of tea. When he opened it, he didn't say a word. He just stepped aside. Inside, they didn't speak. They sat in silence, two people who hated each other, yet couldn't stop colliding. Jace looked at her then, really looked, and said, "You think I'm the villain in your story, don't you?" Kaylee didn't answer, because she wasn't sure anymore. And in that moment, for the first time, she wondered, was she still paying for her sins, or falling for the one man who could truly ruin her? Kaylee should have known it wouldn't last. For a brief moment, the walls between her and Jace began to crack. She caught glimpses of a softer side, when he asked if she'd eaten, when he brought her a jacket during the rain, when he stood too close but never crossed the line. Her feelings, once buried beneath resentment, began to shift into something far more dangerous. Hope. But hope is a fragile thing. And sometimes, the people you trust most are the ones who shatter it. It started with a knock on the mansion door. Trixie, Kaylee's former best friend, arrived out of nowhere, dressed like she belonged in a fashion magazine and smiling like nothing had ever happened. "Hey, girl," she said, flipping her hair as if they were still high school seniors planning spring break. Kaylee's heart stuttered. "What are you doing here?" "Oh, Jace invited me," Trixie grinned. "Didn't he tell you?" "No, he hadn't." At first, Kaylee brushed it off. But over the next few days, Trixie was everywhere. Laughing in the garden with Jace, sharing wine at dinner, whispering behind closed doors. Every time Kaylee passed by, she caught a glance, a smirk, or worse, a knowing look that made her feel like she didn't belong. Then, the photos came. Printed images slipped under her bedroom door like poison letters. Kaylee and a man named Glenn, another ghost from her past, hugging outside a cafe. Walking together, smiling. A snapshot of Glenn brushing her hair from her face. None of it told the full story. Glenn had run into her by chance. He'd apologized for what happened that night, and she'd forgiven him. That was it. But the photos twisted it into something else. Jace saw them. She found him in his office gripping the envelope, jaw clenched tight. His face was unreadable, but his voice cut like ice. "Was I just another name on your list?" he asked. "No," she whispered. "It's not what it looks like." He tossed the pictures onto the desk. "Then explain this. Explain why I get to watch you smiling at another man while I—" He stopped himself. "While you what?" Kaylee challenged, tears burning in her eyes. "While you spy on me? Test me? Humiliate me?" He stepped back, his expression crumbling into something that looked almost like pain. "I don't know how to trust you, Kaylee. Not when I was falling for you." The words hit her harder than any slap. She stood frozen, unable to breathe. And, just like that, he shut the door. Hours later, she packed her things in silence. Her hands shook as she folded the maid uniform one last time. There was no fight, no dramatic goodbye, only emptiness. By the time the sun rose the next morning, she was gone. What Jace didn't know, what no one knew, was that Kaylee left carrying more than just heartbreak. She was carrying his child. 5 years passed like a blur, but for Kaylee Rivera, every day felt like a lifetime. After she left Jace Anderson's mansion, she vanished without a trace. No messages, no calls, no explanations. She didn't even tell her parents the full truth. She just packed her pain, her dignity, and a secret that grew heavier with each passing day. She gave birth to triplets in a quiet New York hospital: Jared, Jackson, and Jamie. 3 perfect little pieces of the man she had loved and lost. Raising them alone was never easy. Between college classes, waitressing shifts, and endless diaper changes, Kaylee built a life from scratch. She swore she didn't need anyone, especially not him. But deep down, she wondered, did he ever miss her? Did he even know what he lost? Now, 5 years later, she was back in California, stronger, smarter, and no longer the naive girl who fell for the billionaire. Her kids were 5 years old, full of questions and energy, and they deserved to know where they came from. But before she could face the past came crashing into her life. It happened at LAX, just moments after she stepped off the plane. She was waiting for her parents near the arrivals gate when a black SUV pulled up out of nowhere. Before she could process what was happening, masked men grabbed her and the kids, throwing them into the vehicle. She screamed, fought, begged, but they didn't listen until she heard a voice. "Be careful with them." It was him, Jace. Kaylee froze. He stood in the corner of the large private estate, watching as she clutched her terrified children. His expression was unreadable, somewhere between rage and regret. "What is this?" she spat, her arms trembling as she held the boys close. "Are you insane?" He didn't answer immediately. Instead, his eyes scanned the children, Jared's strong jaw, Jackson's stubborn eyes, Jamie's dimples, pieces of himself staring back at him. Finally, he whispered, "Are they mine?" The question shattered her. She wanted to lie. She wanted to scream. She wanted to run. But the truth was written across their tiny faces, etched in every glance, every movement. Kaylee nodded. "Yes, they're yours." Silence filled the room like a bomb ticking down. "Why didn't you tell me?" he asked, his voice cracking for the first time. "Because you told me to leave. Because you believed the worst about me. Because I didn't want to beg for a place in your life." Jace stepped forward slowly, almost afraid she'd disappear. Again. "You should have told me anyway." "And what would you have done?" Kaylee challenged. "Raised them between board meetings and power plays? Loved them the way you loved me? Until it scared you?" Jace didn't flinch. He looked at the children once more. Then softly, "Let me make it right." Kaylee blinked, unsure if she was dreaming. She had spent 5 years imagining this moment, fearing it, needing it. But now that it was real, she wasn't sure what scared her more. That he had come back into her life, or that she still wanted him to stay. For days, Kaylee didn't know what to believe. Jace said he wanted to make things right, but trust, once shattered, doesn't come back easily. Especially not after 5 years of silence. Not after the night he threw her out, without letting her explain. Still, something about the way he looked at the kids. It wasn't just guilt. It was longing, regret, love, maybe, if she dared to call it that. He didn't force her to forgive him. Instead, he showed up. Every day, he made breakfast for the triplets, even though he burned the toast. He played catch in the yard, read bedtime stories, and tucked them in with all the awkwardness of a man learning how to be a father in real time. And the kids, God, the kids loved him. Even Jared, the most stubborn of the three, started calling him Dad within a week. But Kaylee kept her walls up. Until one afternoon, she found a small box on her nightstand. Inside was a worn photograph of Mrs. Leona Wells, the woman whose accident had started everything. On the back, in Jace's handwriting, was a single line. "She forgave me when I didn't deserve it. I hope you can too." That night, Kaylee stood on the balcony, watching the sunset. She didn't hear Jace come up behind her, but she felt him. His presence was as familiar as it was unsettling. "Beautiful evening," he said quietly. She nodded, arms crossed. "You've changed." "I had to," he replied. "I lost everything that mattered." A long silence passed between them. Finally, Kaylee turned to face him. "Why now, Jace? Why fight so hard after all this time?" He stepped closer, eyes searching hers. "Because I never stopped loving you. And because I don't want to miss another second of our children's lives. I want to be there, if you'll let me." Kaylee's voice cracked. "You hurt me." Was alone, scared, pregnant. "I had to become strong because you weren't there." "I know," he said, voice thick with emotion. "But I'm here now, and I'm not going anywhere." She looked at him, this man who had once broken her completely, and saw not the cold billionaire from 5 years ago, but a man who had learned what love costs and why it's worth fighting for. She took a breath. "Then don't mess it up." A smile tugged at Jace's lips. "I won't." They didn't rush into marriage, but a year later, under a sky lit with soft string lights and surrounded by friends, family, and 3 very excited flower kids, Kaylee Rivera became Mrs. Kaylee Anderson. Trixie, Glenn, and the others came to the wedding, not as villains, but as people who had changed too. They apologized, and Kaylee forgave. Because she'd already learned, the greatest revenge wasn't anger, it was peace. As Jace kissed her under the stars, with their children laughing just steps away, Kaylee finally understood something. The pain had been real, but so was the healing. And this time, she was walking into forever, not alone. If you've made it this far, I want to hear from you. What did you feel when Kaylee forgave Jace? Do you think love is enough to heal deep wounds? Or would you have walked away even after everything he did? Every one of us carries our own story of heartbreak, of second chances, of letting go or holding on. So tell me, if you were in Kaylee's shoes, what would you have done? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I read every single one because your perspective matters. This isn't just a story, it's a conversation. And maybe, just maybe, someone out there needs to hear what you have to say. Also, let us know where you're watching from. Whether you're curled up in bed, stuck in traffic, or just taking a break from work, we're building a community here, one story at a time. And don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell, because tomorrow's chapter is one you won't want to miss. Trust me, it's going to hit right in the heart. Until then, stay kind, stay brave, and stay with us.